We're ready to start? Do I have to do something to the mic? Good morning. So this is an event hosted by a Swiss organization called Helvetas Swiss Intercooperation. So we must start on the dot. Otherwise, I don't live up to our reputation. So a very good morning to all of you. Thank you very much for taking time out on a very full day for everybody, I'm sure, for this event. We are very proud to be here together with our partners for event that is co-organized, as I said, by Helvetas, based out of Switzerland, working in 30 countries across the world. Also with IFOAM Organics International, who are based out of Bonn, so we are very happy to be in their city, and who have since 1972 been working globally as the only international umbrella organization in the organic world, uniting diverse stakeholders to contribute to an organic vision. And our third very important partner is Andes, a civil society organization from Peru, who are partnering with Oxfam Novib on a large-scale program called Sowing Diversity to harvest food security. So I welcome you to a session that is surely lively, and we'll take you all over the world, all across the world, with very small carbon footprint. This session focuses on three very important topics. The first, of course, as you see from the title, is agriculture, and we were just talking there about the importance of agriculture and how few the sessions have been talking about this topic at the COP. But we fully believe that under the Paris Agreement with the new architecture, if you look at also the NDCs, agriculture is very high on the agenda of national governments, and this is the moment for a new dynamic for collective action on agriculture. So we fully believe that this is the dawn of a new era of collaborative action on this very important topic for both mitigation and adaptation, as well as food security. We are talking today about scaling up because we've had generations of programs working in specific locations, very successful in their small scale. But of course, the scale of actions and the scale of ambition we have is global and massive. And that is what the session seeks to address. The third aspect is about partnership and collaboration. And we are delighted that we have such a diverse panel which embodies this very important aspect of success. I will not introduce the panel altogether to you right now, because then you will lose track of who is who, but I will introduce them as they speak. We are very happy also to have the session today, because it builds on the Gender Action Plan with its 5 key elements. Okay. As you see, we are very good at adaptive planning as well. So there's a minor change in the agenda, but you will not feel it. And it's all for the positive. So as I said, we build on things that have happened during the course of the COP. So on the Gender Action Plan, which has 5 key elements: capacity building, knowledge sharing and communication, gender balance, participation and women's leadership. And you will hear a lot from our colleagues here about that today, about coherence between multiple actors across scales, gender-responsive implementation, and monitoring and reporting. That's what the Gender Action Plan talks about. And yesterday we had the Gender Day. Our session also addresses the issue of alignment between climate policy and the CBD, the Convention for Biodiversity, which is so fundamental. Yeah? So we have examples of concrete actions on bringing these two elements together. Also, the role of non-state actors has been becoming very important, and rightly so. So we also will talk about collaboration with non-state actors and their stakes and their commitment to the topic of discussion. And finally, our session focuses on innovation and collaboration, which are key to implementing the Paris Agreement, because without that, it's just a shell. So that's what is the core content of our session. We have today on the panel colleagues from the civil society sector, as I said, also from the private sector, and Martin Frick from the UNFCCC. We are very grateful you could take time out from your extremely busy schedule. Of course, we all understand that. Martin is with us only for the first half hour. So he will speak right after my colleague Arjumand Nizami, who will present the frame of the discussion today. And we would like Martin's view of where he sees actions of this nature in the agenda for implementation of the Paris Agreement. So, Arjumand, please.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining the session. So I will straight away start my presentation after this wonderful introduction from Rupa. So I think the very first invitation to all of you is to basically look into the topic, unpacking different segments of the topic, where collaboration is a very important word, sustainable food system, upscaling, and also the challenge of climate change, which we all confront. So how do they relate to each other, but also what are their own individual challenges? Collaboration, for example, amongst who are the actors, what are their interests? So we'll have different examples, as Rupa suggested today, to express ourselves, how collaboration has paid its value in agriculture, food, and sustainable food systems. Upscaling, of course, this is a challenge which we all face. So we ask ourselves, what are the innovative approaches to ensure that small pilot projects in agriculture are upscaled successfully, and how best to achieve scalability? As far as climate change is concerned, I think there are different perspectives, and I think every country has its own challenges, but at the same time, different capacities, different perceptions. Farmers have their own bench lines as far as climate change is concerned, and they apply this to their adaptation in agriculture and food production system. So in terms of collaboration, the key elements that we are looking at are basically collaboration amongst who. So when we talk about agriculture, we are talking about collaboration essentially amongst the different actors. Could be private sector, farmers themselves, research institutions, public institutions, NGOs, and different activists, but recognizing that no actor is homogeneous. For example, when we talk about government, particularly in my context from where I come from, in Pakistan, we are not talking about a homogeneous government. There are different levels, and there may be sometimes competition of interests between central government and the regional governments and locally elected governments. So when we say no actors are homogeneous, we're talking about communities, different implementation levels, decision-making levels, of course, different perspectives and interests, which need to be brought together. So collaboration challenges among the actors themselves, but also among different actors. We also ask ourselves, sustainable food system, but sustainability for who? I mean, there are different elements. For example, all the production elements like water, soil, environment, and other ecological ingredients of food production system, but also market forces are important, and the policies which regulate them, cultural dimensions and practices at community level, which communities and farmers, they have lived for centuries, and they have their own adaptive planning, and at the same time, there are power dynamics and different perspectives. So for a highly the non-homogeneous population in the world, we are talking about sustainable food production system. Scales could be geographical. I mean, this is how we understand, and we've internally discussed that, you know, the scalability of a system or scalability of a pilot could be a geographical discussion, or could also be a vertical recognition at policy level for mainstreaming. It could be replication to other similar contexts, but also uptake from resourceful actors to continue and finance, and also to expand in similar or different contexts. In case of climate change, what is changing? That's the main question. For example, in case of Pakistan, we are still grappling with really understanding the change very much at the ground level. When we talk about agriculture, a diverse country like Pakistan faces different climate change challenges. So a national assessment just doesn't help. It has to go really down. It has to be scaled down to regional level or even up to the certain ecosystem levels. What are their impacts? And then as a result of implication of climate change, what are the key priorities that need to be addressed, including water-related challenges? And what sort of remedies do we have in mind, and if we have enough knowledge and capacities so for that? So having said this, there is one project which we are implementing in Pakistan. Basically, this is a regional project among 4 different countries: Pakistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and India. And this is about water productivity in cotton and rice. I mean, we know that these are very, very much water-demanding crops. So the countries which I've indicated, they produce these crops, but actually we are not exporting rice or cotton, we are exporting water. So of course, that is a big topic in these countries, particularly in Pakistan. And this project basically makes an effort to bring multi-stakeholders together to join forces to achieve water productivity in rice and cotton. And you see different actors down below in the bottom of the slide. We have private sector institutions, we have government, policy-making level, research, we have Helvetas involved as a policy partner, and of course farming communities and local companies financed by SDC Global Funds. But particularly in case of Pakistan, we have a local company which is partnering with Mars, and we'll hear look later on how do they see, what is their perspective in this whole scenario. And basically this project is working on push, pull, and policy approach. And I'll explain this later maybe. I think more important is that in terms of collaboration, how did we experience this in WAPRO, in Water Productivity Project, which seemingly is a very straightforward agenda, achieving water efficiency in rice production, for example. But actually, it's not so simple. It is complicated as soon as we put water at the center, because there are competing interests. Water is getting scarce and scarce. Rice is a highly water-demanding crop. There are farmers' interests involved. There's government, which is increasingly conscious on water use efficiency. Pakistan is becoming water scarce. We are already below 1,000 cubic meter per capita. So if we look at community have a right to access water for food production, but they also have obligations. This is a fact. But the tension field is that water is considered free resource, and it is not considered as an economic good. If you look at the private sector, private companies involved in this commercial value chain, it is a very important player and can really influence. But the general perception is that at times private sector gets away without pen, and it is a free rider of water use. About the governments, of course, governments are important too. They are the ones who create environment for widespread replication and transboundary collaboration. But at times, particularly at community level, there are perceptions of a controller which doesn't trust communities as much, and similarly there's a trust deficit from community level, and these tensions go on. NGOs bring new ideas, they facilitate policy dialogue, they of course increasingly encourage collaboration, but at the same time cannot gain scale on their own, which is a challenge which we as NGOs face. The research of course brings much needed evidence, but at the same time is perceived to have a tunnel view, very limited view, very little connection with community and ground realities. Now, in all these challenges, we planned WAPRO and we implemented it, and we've seen transformation of roles. For example, in case of water use, water communities, we increasingly see an urge for water use efficiency, basically because it was really, we could achieve an economic case for water use efficiency. And of course, it was a big incentive to increasingly take that position. Private sector, we'll hear later, is investing in water use efficiency and in a very responsible way and providing much needed incentive for sustaining sustainable sourcing. public actor recognizes the role of multiple actors, and NGOs have adapted their role from project implementer to more as a facilitator amongst multiple actors. And academia and research is continuously supporting to provide evidence and continue this dialogue. So at the end, I think I have filtered down four messages. One is the role clarity and complementarity. Now, these are different actors. Maybe interests are different, but collaboration around one objective was a result of a lot of investments in role clarity and complementary role by overcoming tension fields and getting out of comfort zones of the self. Also, the effectiveness of collaborative models is a case in itself for upscaling. I think this is very important. We have to do a good job at pilot level, and only then we can expect that it will gain scales. Local ownership alone is not adequate for upscaling. Of course, it leads to sustainability, but we need more than this. And that follows the policy alignment argument from the beginning, and the evidence that it works. Policy mainstreaming doesn't come after a pilot is successful, but actually this has to be right from the beginning. So my concluding message is that in order to gain sustainability of good practices on small scale, it is, and to gain scale, collaboration is absolutely essential. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Arjumand. That was a beautiful, yes, I think this is very good work. Thank you. Thank you. That was a very beautiful introduction to what we shall discuss further in the session. We have Dr. Martin Frick with us, who has limited time, but after hearing this presentation, maybe he's tempted to stay a bit longer. But I would now introduce him to you, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Frick as the Senior Director for Policy and Program Coordination at the UNFCCC. Many of you would know him from his earlier role at the FAO as the Director for Climate, Energy and Tenure Division. And combining both these functions, there couldn't be a better person to talk about this topic today than Dr. Frick. So without further ado, Dr. Frick, I invite you to deliver your address.
Thank you very much, and let me start with an apology. I really don't want to jump in and destroy all of the program and reshuffle it. And I need to apologize personally to Gabor, because I think I caused him a lot of white hair in reshuffling the program back and forth. I basically agreed to speak here when I did not already know that I would be getting the job here at UNFCCC. That's 10 days ago, so I'm still in the transition, and I need to go early because I have a commitment where I need to jump in for the executive secretary, and you simply can't say no. But enough said. I have been working on agriculture for the last 2.5 years, and actually I've been running on the side as a volunteer a little NGO since 10 years that's looking into land degradation and land restoration, and the nexus between security, stability, and land. And, you know, I am really heartened to see how over the last years this topic is really becoming the attention that it actually deserves. It's a very, very simple truth that we are living from the land, and that the land can live without us, but we cannot live without. You know, I'm very happy to see people from indigenous communities here. They would look at you with a blank stare and say, what are you talking about if you don't even understand this easy connection? And yes, we have forgotten about this connection. We think of milk as something that comes in a box in a supermarket. We have screensavers on our computers with beautiful landscapes that at times don't even exist anymore. Very, very clearly, the two biggest miracles of this planet is really how light and water is being turned into biomass, and biomass is such an ugly word if you think about the natural beauty that we are seeing here, and how carbon is being recycled again and again and again, and life finds from generations to generation a new expression, a new form, and everything is continued in a closed cycle. That is, until basically 100 years ago, we started to change the system and called it a green revolution, and it's not. It's destroying the carbon cycle. It's interrupting things that we should be doing. So I will say 2 sentences more on the doom and gloom scenario, and then I will become a little bit more positive. One sentence is, I was at the launch of UNEP's GAP report that is alarming, absolutely alarming, but at the same time identifies agriculture sectors as one of the key hopes we are having to stay below, well below 2 degrees centigrade that we have. And the other one, seemingly unrelated, is a presentation that IUCN did on a new report about natural World Heritage sites, and not surprisingly, they are most endangered by climate change more than anything else. So now to the positive side. In a roundtable I attended yesterday, somebody called the agricultural sector, all of the food system, and it's very, very important that we look at it as a system, is the Cinderella topic in the climate change affairs. Why? Basically because our topic is still in the kitchen and is still peeling potatoes, but it takes very little that this becomes the princess of the next COP. And that's what I want to do. I've been looking at the action agenda here. You are aware of the Marrakesh Partnership, of the Climate Action Champions, which are doing fantastic work and will bring this afternoon many of the findings of the climate action agenda into the plenary where it belongs to the negotiators. And many of you have followed, I'm sure, on Friday, the Agriculture Action Day and the SDG 2 Day on the 14th. I think what we need is to have this more compressed, more focused, more paying attention to what are the linkages we need to establish, what are the missing links. You will hear, I'm not just seeing a colleague from Mars, that's something you hear from private sector all the time, to broaden the scope, to really go deeper into the value chain and to look the whole system from beginning to the end. But back to the climate action agenda, what crystallizes out is that one of the things that worked really, really well in this COP was the summit in the summit by the local communities, ICLE, the cities. We are starting to think about doing a similar thing for agriculture next year, to have a really focused high-level action day where we bring together the most diverse sectors, and I think you will find the biggest diversity in the agricultural sectors, because everything is farming, from a fully automatic harvester and enormous fields down to a farming lady in Africa with her child on the back, basically working on a piece of land that's a fraction of the surface of this room. And I think it's well deserved, because we are always speaking about combining the Sustainable Development Agenda and the climate agenda. And if you do that in practice with real people, if you go out, then you will find that in agriculture, in the production on the ground, you got all the things coming together. We need to look after our soils. We need to cultivate our soils. And we need, and I think soils are a fantastic example for that, we need to move on from sustainability. Sustainability is with us since 1986, and we've been desperately trying to keep the status quo, to sustain the status quo. We need to move on to restoration, because so much has been lost, so much is degraded, not only in land, but in forests that are deforested, or in fish stocks that's overfished. But the good news is that this is a bad situation, but it can be undone. Unlike other sectors, you cannot unburn fossil fuels, but you can reforest forests, you can grow soils, you can bring fish back to where it belongs. And as we have seen yesterday in the Momentum for Change, you can even recultivate coral reefs. But what these things have in common is this is not about high-tech solutions. This is not about science fiction, geoengineering nonsense, forgive me for saying. But this is about real people and hard work and rolling up the sleeves and doing things. Now, what do we have? We have a growing world population. The world is growing exactly where people are the poorest. You need to provide livelihood and a perspective to people, because otherwise you're pushing them in poverty, in desperation, and ultimately in violence, in conflict, in extremism. And the only possibility where we can really do that at scale is to finally acknowledge that people who are working on the land are stewards of this planet, and their work is worthwhile. And to restore their livelihoods and to restore their dignity, I find that a part of carbon benefits, of carbon money, needs to find the way to local farmers. And that's difficult because in many of the countries, the governance system is not perfect. But there are new high-tech methods, payments by cell phones, that lower the transaction costs, that decrease the risk of corruption and losses in the system. And I think we need to work on the basis of the tradition, of rich traditions of, in particular, indigenous peoples who've been showing us for literally thousands of years how sustainable management works. But we have to make the latest technology work for them. Things like satellite data, weather forecast, because the rainfall patterns are changing and you need the information to do that, and payments to get the money to where actually it belongs. So I'm running out of time, but I want to conclude with a heartfelt invitation. I don't know what shape, size, and color the special focus on agriculture is going to take next year, but I see a lot of support for that from many diverse stakeholder groups, also from people in energy and transport and, you know, not core areas to agriculture, which is great, and I would be very happy to see you in the room when we meet again in 1 year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Frick, for taking time out on a day that is surely busy. And just as you've started, your message resonated very much with our guest from Cusco, Sonia, who's also a member of a handicrafts cooperative, in addition to her work on preserving indigenous varieties. And she has a little gift for you. Handicraft made by Sonia's group, and she's been looking forward to meeting the responsible person at the UNFCCC for agriculture. And now that she found Martin.
Thank you very much. You don't know how timely that is. It's my birthday today.
Oh. Okay, after that very inspiring input and a very open and clear invitation to all of us, the community that cares about agriculture, to the topics for next year's COP, where I think we should all be together with our experiences in the negotiating zone, we should move on with our program. And I would like to now introduce to you Gabor, who's been so instrumental in making this event happen. Gabor is responsible for global policy with IFOAM Organics International. He has a background in agriculture and ecology, and is leading IFOAM's work on policies to transfer global agriculture into more sustainable ways. He has led policy development and campaigns for nature-friendly, resource-efficient, and equitable farming and food systems at national, European, and global levels. His personal mission is to create and engage in effective partnerships that deliver results for agriculture and for smallholder farmers. So Gabor, with this introduction, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Rupa, and thanks a lot for being able to be on this panel. It's really a pleasure to greet all of you, and it's really a pleasure to see that we have such a crowded room here. So it seems there is still interest generated for and on agricultural issues in the context of the climate change negotiations. What I would like to talk to you about today is drivers of change for solutions that work on one hand for nutrition, food security, livelihoods of people, and on the other hand also work for climate change, for providing solutions for climate change issues. This is based on a project that we have been running for 2 years now with the support of the Swiss Development Cooperation on nutrition-sensitive agriculture and on diversified diets and diversified agriculture. We are running this project in 5 countries, which are Ethiopia, Peru, Nepal, Pakistan, and Kyrgyzstan. And our partners in the project are FIBL, which is the Organic Research Institute based in Switzerland, and Helvetas, that we also partner with on this side event. Our approach is based on a value chain approach. So you can see that we start basically from smallholder producers and try to work along the whole value chain down to or up to the consumers. We also work at the policy level and with the services. We very much base our experiences on experiences that rural service providers in these countries have, and initiatives that come actually very much from the grassroots level, from these rural service providers. And at this fairly initial phase of introducing to the results of the project, we have identified 10 win-win solutions that work for sustainable nutrition as well as deliver results on climate change issues. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to show you all the 10 nice solutions that we developed, so I had to select 3 of them. The first would be training and extension on production systems. Of course, we as the global umbrella organization on organic farming base this project very much on the principles of organic agriculture. So, of course, all these interventions or micro-interventions, as we call them, are based on practices that are aligned with the principles of organic agriculture. What we realized, well, of course, organic agriculture is very much a knowledge-intensive sector, not so much an input-intensive sector as opposed to conventional agriculture. So extension services are key for organic. So one of the interventions looks at what sort of practical know-how and skills we can actually deliver to farmers. So therefore, we are doing practical trainings on compost and organic manure production, mulching, and all other practices. We are promoting rainwater harvesting and drip irrigation. And we, of course, also facilitating access to markets and income generation. We always, in all these interventions, we work at 3 levels, at the local, the national, and the global level. But we work with partners. So here, of course, a natural partner would be in each of the countries, the agriculture ministry. But we need to work with extension service providers. We are also working with cooperatives. So collaboration is very much a basic thing for this project. And if we talk about collaboration, then I need to mention this online platform that we have developed for the rural service providers, or we can call them actually solution providers for these multiple issues, to come together and discuss their solutions, how they can be scaled up, how they can be improved, how they can be shared amongst themselves. So we created this Mountain Agro-Ecosystems Action Network, which is an online platform. So far, it works for the 5 countries, and also it has a global platform where we report on events like this one, for example, so that we can also give feedback to our rural service providers that, well, the work you are doing is actually resonating at the global level as well. This is how the platform looks like, and just one example is the Nepalese. So people really get excited to post their experiences there, to post pictures there. It works like a mini Facebook for many. Our next solution would be on a cross-sectorial approach on policymaking. In policymaking, I think we all agree that without cross-sectorial approaches, none of these issues will be solved. So we won't deliver on nutrition without a cross-sectorial approach, but we won't deliver on climate change either. So this is why we always advocate for cross-sectorial approaches. Of course, that needs a lot of collaboration with the concerned departments, which in many countries tend to work in their silos. So it usually takes NGOs to connect the dots, to connect these departments within the countries, but the same happens at the global level as well. So we are trying to streamline linkages between agriculture, climate change, and nutrition, to make these links in people's minds, that they understand that, okay, your job might be something to focus on, but still, if you can just do it with a view to deliver on other issues, I mean, that doesn't necessarily harm you. And we are also supporting business, promoting nutrition-sensitive agriculture, which is a key topic for the project. The third would be linking resilient, low-input, nutrition-sensitive agriculture with national strategies. And this is my one but last slide. Thank you. I have 2 more minutes, which is perfect. So we believe that diversified agriculture and consumption contributes to reach objectives related to climate change, nutrition, rural development, and the environment. And we want to, I mean, all of these countries need to set up their strategies on certain issues. But again, we are trying to link all these strategies so that actually they would deliver on the multiple issues. So like family health, natural resources, and also job creation are among these issues. So when we come to the recommendations at the 3 levels, I think it's important that countries, when they revise their NDCs, for example, because that's also a national kind of strategy, it's supposed to be, then they put on a lens which also looks at nutrition, which also looks at the livelihoods of farmers. And of course, for many countries, agriculture would be part of the NDCs, but there might be countries which are not that much interested in the topic, and for livelihoods, it's key to have it there. So when they would revisit their NDCs to make them more ambitious, I think nutrition-sensitive agriculture should have a place in all of them. Also, looking at how we can get from the local level to the global level. We were very happy to see this agreement that finally we managed to get under the SABSTA on agriculture. Parties were really cheering, let's say, themselves and each other and hugging each other after many years of struggle under the stop-start negotiations on agriculture. Now we have kind of a 3-year work program, and we will have workshops, hopefully every year here in Bonn, maybe as well as during the COPs on agriculture. So we have a lot of lessons learned. We have a lot of experience, expert work that we could contribute to these workshops. And I really hope that at the national level, these will be already incorporated in a way so that at these workshops, these would be presented. And this was my last sentence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Gabor. I would propose to open the floor to a few questions of clarification from your side. We have 2 mics that can go around. Okay. Can I see the hands, please, so I can manage the time a bit? Right. That looks very good. Please, the mic there at the back. The lady at the back.
Good morning. My name is Pumza Dubula from South Africa. I'd like to know, how do you practically facilitate these NGOs and co-ops to make sure that they access the markets? How do you practically do so? Thank you.
Is there another question? I don't think so. I think I saw only... okay. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Mine is not a question as per se, but just a contribution. And I'm from Uganda. I'm a smallholder farmer for more than 30 years. And we have been with climate change, but some time back, climate change was not an issue, but now it has become a global issue. But what I would request, this is a request, and I've been talking to different events like this one, that local farmers, especially the grassroots, they have a lot of local knowledge, indigenous knowledge, but it has been left at the grassroots, and it has not been taken so much serious at the UN level. Therefore, we would request IFOAM to advocate. We all advocate, but because it is a global organization, to advocate for it so that we can get a platform, we can get where we can try to discuss it seriously. Because when you are talking about organic farming or agroecological farming, it is more based on indigenous knowledge and local knowledge, which include like mulching, like others, so many to mention, but the few. Therefore, I'm just requesting that. Then we have also there is also another big issue which we would like also to be assisted. There is too much of people in farming on a large scale. They are just looking at money on the money side, not caring about the environment. And even the government at all levels, not my government, but all levels, they are thinking of making money. Because now we are struggling about GMOs, we are struggling about this conventional farming and so forth. Now there is a struggle, and whereby I have been also addressing this in different meetings, that we farmers at the grassroots, we are at the crossroad. Because when the people who are talking about GMOs come, they will say, this is the best way how to do farming, this is the best way for using a conventional agriculture. And then also there are some researchers who are really for us. When they come on, they say, no, this conventional farming is bad, GMOs is bad, this is that. Now the farmer become confused. And I mean, I can say I am also confused. Which way to take? We are at the crossroad. Last but not least, I am also arguing because I am also a local innovator. I am a farmer who is promoting local innovation. I have come up with so many innovations, like even other farmers. But the government at the local level, even the local NGOs, or some even international NGOs, they have not helped us. Because as one of the presenters said, what we are coming up need to be backed up with data, with research. But with small farmers, we don't have the money. And when you tell the researchers, they will ask money, which we don't have. But our innovations must be supported by the research, by scientists, so that we have the facts and the findings and what impact, whatever. Now I have
Thank you, my brother. Thank you very much.
Okay,
I think we understand your message very, very clearly, and your question too. So I would now ask perhaps Gabor to respond to the two questions, or Arjumand, you can also supplement, but maybe Gabor, you start first, because the question was very clear from your side. What support can we expect?
Yeah, thanks for the comment and also the question. I think I can just express my sympathy to all what you have said. What an NGO can do either in a UNFCCC or in a UN context is, of course, advocate for organic agriculture to be taken into account. So that's what we are trying to do, and I've just outlined how big of a struggle it was to get an agreement on agriculture, at least during these last days. So this is really a struggle, and it's not only a struggle in Uganda. I think it's the same in each of these countries. So yeah, my biggest sympathy is completely yours. I don't know if you, Arjumand, you want to reflect on the second or the first question.
I think I'll just add that this comment, the second comment, was in itself a case for expressing collaboration. I mean, how different interests can be mediated to find an answer. I'll give you an example from Pakistan. For example, we've been talking about GMO varieties of maize. This whole a discussion around whether we should allow GMOs in Pakistan or not. There has been a long discussion, a lot of advocacy, lobbying from NGOs as well. But at the same time, I mean, there have been different actors who've been bringing a different case, different sort of set of arguments. But finally, we have a success that we have plant breeders' rights policy passed in Pakistan. That's really a history, and eventually, and I think this is a result of this whole collaboration among different actors together, conducting awareness-raising session where government has also been participating. And my own sense is that in these kind of contentious issues, I mean, be it water, GMOs, germplasm, and any agriculture-related, I mean, for example, external inputs, what I've learned is that this frontline advocacy, but unilateral advocacy probably has results, but not as effective as when you also include government as a party and together conduct a dialogue and convince each other and look into the pros and cons. So I think I'm more for collaboration, and I see results, and I have examples. I couldn't follow the first question fully, but I think you've asked how NGOs facilitate market assessment. I think this was your question. I think one very important message in your question in itself is that NGOs should facilitate market assessment and should not conduct market assessment, because I've also lived a situation where NGOs used to take a position of an actor which they shouldn't have taken. So in our example, what my organization, for example, has tried to do is to to really follow a results chain approach, really identify market at different levels, identify market actors at different levels, and really go through each level and use actors' knowledge to really assess where market stands and what are the potentials and challenges. It could be really, it depends on the commodity at different level, for example, like local level, going to the regional and eventually national or even export level. Some commodities are not made for export or for inter-regional marketing. So of course, the segregated analysis is actually very much helped out by actors. So our role has been to really facilitate this research process and document with peer review from market players.
Just maybe one thing to add to the second comment is that, yeah, we have all these innovations and we have all these solutions worldwide, and what an NGO can do is just trying to explore where we have these innovations and try to surface them. So we are doing it as part of this project on nutrition sensitive agriculture, but we are doing it with another organization called RARE in another project on surfacing solutions that work for biodiversity in farming. And we will also bring it to a platform which is called Panorama. So I can only hope, and we try to engage with policymakers so that they actually look at these platforms and they try to learn what works in which local context, of course, and design these national strategies accordingly.
Thank you very much, Arjumand and Gabor, and thank you for the questions. I think the question from the back was also about accessing carbon markets, if I understood you right. And the complexities of carbon sequestration in agriculture and leakages and assessment, etc., are, I think, well known to us. With the issue moving to the SABSTA, we expect that there would be greater progress. And of course, NGOs have a role in aggregating farmers and building capacities, making it possible for them to access these markets when the mechanisms come in place. Moving on, we have our colleague from France, Hélène Boutreau, a native of France, but who's working in Peru with the Association Andes as a program coordinator and lead researcher for the Sowing Diversity Harvesting Security Program. She has specialized in biodiversity conservation for sustainable diets and climate change adaptation. Helen will share experiences of biodiversity conservation actions from 5 countries with us. Please, Helen.
Thank you, Rupa. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to apologize for Gigi, who can't be with us today, but I will continue with the presentation, and thank you for being here. I will present to you a few lessons from the program, Sowing Diversity, Harvesting Security. What is this program? Well, it's, as Rupa said, implemented in 5 countries, so it's active from lowland paddy fields to high mountain altitudes in semi and semi-arid regions, in high potential regions, but also in marginal regions. Its goal is to strengthen farmers' seed systems for food and nutrition security in climate change conditions. How do we do that? We have farmers' field schools in participatory plant breeding, neglected and underutilized species and nutrition, and we have about 520 of them, reaching almost 600 at the end of this year. And we ally with 50 partners from local to global NGOs, civil society, local and national government, and a little bit of the private sector as well. And we try as well to work with the national government so that they align on their intended nationally determined contribution, like in Peru, for which its NDC for agriculture is to consider protecting the sector and its contribution to the economy, and include attending the most vulnerable groups, so small and subsistence farmers. We work on 4 pillars, but today I will mainly highlight 2 pillars that we work on, which are helping climate adaptation. The first one The first one aims at strengthening adaptive capacity of indigenous smallholder farmer in seed conservation, sustainable use, and access by scaling up innovative and engendered models of biodiversity management. And the third one is more focused on empowering women to regain their role in food security by strengthening their capacity in managing seeds and nutrition. So what are our impacts? There are many in all the countries we work in. For example, in the Mekong Delta in Vietnam, 35 of the rice seeds are farmer seeds. And these farmers are now out of poverty and they're economically good. And these happen because the program lobbied regional government to change the seed law to now allow farmers to sell their seeds. Also, we've had an exponential growth of the farmers' field schools to 600, which has never been seen in the history of farmers' field schools and plant genetic resources for food and agriculture. And a lot of these training has been increasing food and seed security through new plant material, new varieties. We have about 700 trainers that have been trained and who train themselves 30,000 farmers. Also in Zimbabwe, they established a farmers cooperative seed enterprise that now provide other farmers in the region with good quality seeds, and they reduced their hunger periods from 4 to 2.5 months, which is a great achievement. And we also tried to build really strong relationship with the government, which succeeded in many of the countries we work in. So how do farmers run an analysis of climate change in their agro-ecosystem? So how the program works is that we do everything in a participatory way in all the countries, working in farmers' field schools. It's based on this approach that aims at reinforcing capacities, empowering smallholder farmers through horizontal learning exchange practices and using context-adapted tools. Why is this important? It's important because this way, the solutions for climate change that we work on in the program are really tailored to the field and the necessities of the farmers. How do farmers perceive the climate change in their communities? Well, first of all, they base themselves on traditional weather indicators, what they call biocultural indicators that they can observe on the field. Then they analyze it, compare it, validate it with other experiences from other farmers, also with official meteorological data, which involves collaboration with meteorological officers. Of course, there are some discrepancies. For example, if all a week's load of rain falls in one day, then for the farmer, it would be a decrease of the rainfall, even though for meteorological data, it's not a decrease of the rainfall, but it still impacts greatly the farmer. So we always have to put it into the local context and how the farmers experience the climate situations. And the effects, well, they're the same as in all the countries. For the 5 countries we work in, increase in the number of pests and disease, changes in the amount, distribution of rainfall, with very unpredictable dry spells, erratic rains, and increasing temperatures. So what do farmers do to adapt to these effects? Well, as we said, we work in a participatory way, and all the solutions we want to work with come from the farmers themselves. Otherwise, it doesn't have as much of a greater impact. For example, in Peru, they re-celebrate their traditional agricultural calendar, which means they readapt it to their empirical experience. Also, they sow their crops higher and higher, for example, the potatoes. So these are very local strategies that they implement based on their empirical observations. Farmers in Zimbabwe as well, they monitor rainfall patterns to assess soil moisture, and then they can see when to plant, what to plant, and whether they should plant at all. But mainly one of the greatest adaptation strategy that they put in place is the use of biodiversity for adaptation, the use of plant genetic resources for food and agriculture. There's a constant request by farmers for new material, stable varieties, segregating population, breeding lines, both traditional and modern as well. And mainly they want crop varieties that are drought resistant, flood resistant, pest resistant, because these are the main problems that they find in the field. They also use combination of late, early maturing varieties, so they know really well how to manage their diversity and how to manage the specificities, agronomic specificities of their varieties in the field. And also in the program, we work with neglected and underutilized species, which are really important, especially during scarcity period in most of the countries. So why is it important for us in the program to bridge farmers' knowledge, farmers' indigenous traditional knowledge, and scientific knowledge, and the use of technologies? Well, the program's strength is to consider both farmers' traditional knowledge and bridging it to other sources, what we call scientific knowledge. Technology is used to capitalize on farmers' knowledge, skills, practices, and diffuse them, maintain them in the communities. And scientific knowledge is used for the participants of the program to develop new skills, abilities for unknown effects of climate change, like new pests and disease, for example, that they've never seen before. So we have an example here, a great example of how this farmers' knowledge can be combined with scientific knowledge. This one is in Zimbabwe, but we have a very similar one in Peru as well. So this is a diversity wheel, which is a participatory diagnostic tool, Agro-ecosystem diagnostic tool, where all the farmers can evaluate the diversity of the cultivars they have, the varieties they have. And it has been made into a friendly user app that the farmers are using on the field, which helps systematize and maintain this knowledge alive in the communities. And that can be also scaled up really easily. So what are the innovations of this program? Well, first of all, the farmers' field schools. This is a great platform because it can be used to test, adapt, develop new plant materials, but not only for farmers, also at the national and the international level. So it's a great way to scale up adaptation and to see the actual impacts of adaptation at the local level that could be seen as a global solution. Also, there has been participatory development of apps for biodiversity, so the wheel app we just saw, and also in Peru, an ethnobotanical data collection app for neglected and underutilized species, which are used by the farmers, but can be used by the scientific community in the country, by students, and generate really good quality maps for really good quality data for policymakers as well. Use of gender-celebrated tools, so made by the woman, for the woman, to capture perception, trait preferences, breeding objectives that are both for men and women, and soon for the youth as well. Also match farmers' genetic resources demand with supply from breeding institutions, from gene banks. That could be done as well using tools like the Diversity Wheel app and see what are the needs of the farmers. In the near future, it is also very important to establish a 20-year scenario, which will require collective assessment, trials, to be able to see what will be the stresses that the communities will have to face and see what kind of solutions can be implemented at the local level, supported also by the global level. And lastly, bringing to scale, which is one of the very important impacts of this program, major innovation. So this exponential expansion of the farmers' field schools, which we mainstream through policy reforms in all the countries and also multi-stakeholder collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. Thank you for a rich presentation, which touches upon some of the fundamental adaptive capacities that need to be preserved, valorized, and enhanced, which is traditional knowledge and the biodiversity that communities have been conserving for years. On the topic of scaling up, it's a good moment now to move to our next speaker, which is Luke Beerens from Mars Foods. He's driven over this morning from Netherlands, so thank you very much. He must have started very early this morning. Luke has been with Mars since 1993. By training, he's an engineer and a manager, but his heart lies with the farmers, also his work. He's on the advisory board of the multi-stakeholder sustainable rice platform. So they had a meeting this morning about rice and greenhouse gas emissions and measurements. And the sustainable rice platform promotes resource efficiency and sustainability globally in the rice sector. Luke will present concrete examples of working through partnership on these very important crops, both from food security as well as adaptation and mitigation perspective. So the floor is yours.
Good. Thank you, Rupa. Before we, I'm not the only one who woke up early, I see. Before I go into the program that we have running in several countries where we source from, and the one I'm going to specifically talk about is the one that we have with Helvetas, with Arjumand in Pakistan, to illustrate how we bring our ambition to life. So before I do that, I want to create some context by showing you what we call our sustainability in a generation ambition. As we all know, the world is facing significant challenges, poverty, climate change, food security, and we think that the private sector has a key role to play in tackling these issues. A month ago, we made our ambition public. We started already several years ago, but we made our ambition public, what that means to us, and what role we as Mars like to play in tackling those issues. So this slide is summarizing it. So it's talking about a healthy planet, it's talking about thriving people, it's talking about nourishing well-being. Won't go through all of the details, but to give an example, I mean, the targets that we have set ourselves as a company are science-based. So we are going to drive change in our full supply chains, and we haven't been active in that several years back. And again, when I'm going to talk about Pakistan, I will illustrate that. Science-based targets, what does it mean? On greenhouse gas emissions, it means, for instance, that we're going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 27% by 2020, and by 70% or almost 70% by 2030. So that's a massive reduction. On water, we have similar targets. So how to achieve that? I think the best way to illustrate that is to talk about rice. And before I'm going to show a few more slides, which I think you have been bored to death already, let me try a video that illustrates what we are doing. Arjumand, if you can have the pleasure to...
ਇਹਨਾਂ ਆਣ ਕੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜਦੀਦ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਇਸਤੇਮਾਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਲਦ ਦਾਦਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ
In Pakistan, we're working with 600 Uncle Ben's farmers. They grow basmati rice of the highest quality. So at Uncle Ben's, we have been thinking how we can reduce the environmental impact we have, or our materials that we source have on the planet.
Pakistan is a water-stressed country. Most of the available fresh water is used for agriculture.
Uncle Ben's जो जदीद टेक्नोलॉजी करवा रही है हमारे पास आन के छटा करवा रहा है ड्रिल करवा रही है
Farmers have seen an 8% increase in yield, 30% reduction in water, and a 32% increase in income just by implementing new, better farming methods.
ਇਹ ਆਪ ਸਿੱਖਣ ਦੇ ਬਾਵਜੂਦ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਫਾਰਮਰ ਨੇ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਦੱਸ ਰਿਹਾ ਵਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਿਲੈਕਟ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੁਨਸਲਿਕ ਹੋਵੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਰਪੀਐਲ ਨੂੰ ਜਿੱਤਿਓ
Uncle Ben is a key partner. So I think they are playing a very important role, and I think other brands should take the lead and should follow them.
So I will come back on this in a minute. It's just to illustrate, how that can look like. And to be fairly honest with you, several years ago, we didn't know who Sajid was. We didn't even know who the farmers were. We just had a relationship with our supplier, which was based in Pakistan, and we have similar suppliers in India, in Cambodia, and elsewhere. We had no clue who was growing our rice. We had no clue what income they were making. We had no clue how they were growing the rice and the impact it has on water, on greenhouse gas emissions, etc. So we are changing that. So we're changing that by developing what we call farmer partnerships. We are identifying the farmers in our supply chain and train them, educate them how to grow rice, in this case, in a more sustainable way. So how to do that? We're using the SRP standard, was mentioned before. So Sustainable Rice Platform has developed a standard which defines what sustainable rice cultivation means. So all of our rice farmers are being asked to adopt that standard. Not so much to drive compliancy to that standard, but to make sure the basics are implemented and to understand what is missing. By building those farmer partnerships, and that's where there's a benefit for us as a company in here, is we can secure quality and food safety. Because there's a diverging trend between the legislative framework in the countries where we sell the rice, US, Europe, and where rice is being grown. Because farmers are using more and more pesticides, and the legislations around pesticides is getting more and more strict. So by developing those partnerships, we can manage, we can control what kind of pesticides are being used and minimize the use of that. It also means we have a moral obligation not only to change the environmental aspects of rice farming, but also to make sure farmers have a decent income. So we are developing programs to increase their income. And last but not least, one of the focus areas in Pakistan, again, since it's a water-stressed country, as Arjumand mentioned, is by 2020 we're going to have the gap to sustainable water use reduced by 20%, 50%, so half the gap by 2025. So how to do that? As said, farmer partnerships, establishing a relationship with farmers, which we hadn't had before, as said, introduce the SRP standard, and drive impact programs. Impact programs that are relevant to the region. So for Pakistan, India, Spain, all three of them are water-stressed countries. That means we focus on how to train farmers in more water-efficient cultivation techniques. In those countries where there's income stress, we're focusing on the income. We're not driving the income of a US farmer, for instance. We are trying to help the farmers in Asia. So how to do that mapping, impact analysis, we got there, and focused interventions. And that's where the collaboration, which is the key element of this session today, comes into play. So we aren't doing that alone, of course. We don't understand how rice should be grown, so we're using the experts. We have a great supplier in Pakistan in this case, as well as in other countries, RPL. We have Helvetas, who's supporting us on the ground, WWF, the International Rice Research Institute, SRP, and I forgot one of the people in the room, which is UTS, who are helping us to drive positive change. Strategy and execution. So to put some numbers to it, in Pakistan we currently have 600 farmers. The SRP score, if you can talk about a score, is about 70%. So that tells us what's in place and what is missing. And if that's relevant, what is missing to the farmer, we're going to focus on that. Quality rejection rate, as said, there should be a mutual benefit, so it should be beneficial for us as well as a company. We've seen quality rejection rate dropping from 80% to 80%, which we had, to 5%, thanks to the farmer partnerships. We're introducing new practices, and we've seen great results in 2016, and we are scaling up in 2017, leading to an increase in yield, increase in income, and reduction in water, which is key to the farmers. And this is one of the challenges, and in my last slide I will use a few words more on this. Are we driving change only for our 600 farmers that supply the rice that we use at Mars? The answer is no. We're trying to scale up and reach out to other farmers in the area. To date, we have been able to reach out to 10,000 farmers. And one way is what you've seen in the video, is for the lead farmers that are part of our farmer network to talk to other farmers and to explain what kind of, to be honest, quite simple techniques can lead to drastic change for themselves and for the environment. And Rupa asked me to close off with the last slide, what are the challenges then for the private sector and what are the opportunities? So try to summarize them here. So one is in scope. So what should we do as Mars? Should we drive change in our own supply chain or should we go broader? And what is the benefit of going broader? And at the other hand, there's an opportunity. There is a benefit in going beyond their own supply chain, which is to show leadership in the rice industry, leadership in the industry, which, how does it help us as a company? It helps us in our talks to customers, to the retailers, because they do appreciate this leadership role, which we can turn into value. Second challenge is on infrastructure to effectively drive change. So do we have to build those farmer partnerships in every country? Or could we drive change by driving scale within a region or within a country? And there's an opportunity. By mobilizing the whole industry, and with the help of Helvetas, we're trying to do that, and WWF in Pakistan, we think we can. And the Sustainable Rice Platform, which is a multi-stakeholder platform, is a great vehicle to drive that broader change and to drive a change beyond the 600 farmers in Pakistan. The third and last challenge we see is return on investment. The program on the slide with the blue picture, we're going to invest $1 billion in the next 3 years to drive change. And we need much more money for the coming years in order to achieve our goals. So does that give a return on investment? The answer is no, not quickly. Do we think it will in future? Yes, we think it will. We do think that consumers will start to care about how their products are being sourced. Currently, they don't. If you ask them, do you care about the environmental and social issues? Everybody, also here in this room, will say yes. The moment you enter the shop floor, that is gone. So we don't see that yet reflected in purchasing behavior, but I think that's a matter of time. We already see change with customers, so key retailers that are asking, demanding suppliers like us to supply the products in a more sustainable way. So return on investment will come. Opportunity, and that's what we are doing in order to reduce that investment and to still continue to drive change, is by tapping into external funding. So yes, we are using public money in order to drive change. Change within our own supply chain, but also change beyond that supply chain. Have we figured out between the challenges and opportunities on which side we're going to be? Not fully yet, but hopefully we can take the opportunities and take away the challenges that we currently are facing. So let me stop there and let me open up for questions, unless there's another person, Rupa.
Yes, I'm sure there are a lot of things that you want to ask Helen and Luke. We also have a very important message from Sonia, so I want to preserve time for that. So I would take 2 questions at this moment. So if you're really quick, I see you and I ask you for your question. So there is one here and the gentleman there, please.
Hi, I'm Isabel from the United Nations University in Bonn. I have a question for Mr. Behrens. Thank you so much for your presentation and for all of your speakers. I have a particular question. You state that GMOs are safe for everyone, but also they need probably more water, energy, and pesticides. In countries of the global south, companies cannot always provide the security for workers actually in the field against pesticides. So how do you actually assess that? How do you work with the companies that you're collaborating? And how's the water treated with the pesticides? Because it infiltrates groundwater, which means all the communities living surrounding there are affected by polluted water and get sick. I had a few questions.
I think we take time after the session because Luke will be here. Yeah, and I think your questions are very relevant. But I would like to give the other gentleman an opportunity for his question. And Luke, maybe you can answer both together. Here, please.
Yeah, Yeah, my name is Bashir Jama, and I'm from the Islamic Development Bank at Jeddah. Look, I appreciate what your company is doing. I think those are the kinds of innovative partnerships that bring science into practice and bring on board the private sector into the fore. One specific question I have is, yes, you have 600 farmers now that are linked well to your production chain. You might think it's small, but it could have a big trigger effect. The question is, to what extent are you utilizing those 600, if they are in Pakistan, for example, to excite the government at local level, the government at the national level, the Ministry of Agriculture, the investors, the public those that are running the investment cycles of the government to create a momentum for scale?
Two great questions. I won't forget you. Let me start with that question. I think the best illustration of how to drive that scale and how to involve governments, because they are key, is a congress that we had, a meeting that we had in May this year in Islamabad with governments. We presented and we invited other private sector players, other millers, in order to show what's possible, in order to drive change on a broader scale. The beauty was the Minister of Information in Pakistan was there as well, and she was a former employee of WWF. And she actually invited us in the evening for a tea, and Geert from Oots joined that tea. She was very excited, same along the lines you said, about the potential of this program. And she has offered her media channels, radio and television, in order to convey this message to the broader public. So it shows there is traction, it shows there is interest from the government, and we're going to materialize that in the next 3 years by going with Helvetas into the next 3-year program, where we're going to go beyond the 600 farmers and even go beyond the 10,000 farmers that we have reached now and drive really scale and transform the rice sector, in this case in Pakistan. So governments are key, and Arjumand is playing a key role in managing those relationships. Questions on health and safety. It's a big issue. So have we cracked it? No, we didn't. Have we minimized the use of pesticides? Yes, we did. Are pesticides still being used? Of course. But we're trying to, not we, but we use external experts to do so, to just use the pesticides that are needed in order for the farmers to have a decent income. Other on human safety, farmers are indeed, or farm workers are indeed applying pesticides without any protection in India and Pakistan, and cancer is one of the consequences of that. As part of our program, human rights is an issue for us, and we are training, so we have programs in India as well as in Pakistan to educate farmers about the risks of unsafe pesticide application. We do that also in partnership with pesticide providers. So Bayer Crop Science is supporting us in that because they see it as an issue as well. That will take time because, to be honest, after a training, we look if practices are being applied in the field, and they hardly are. So it takes really a long period of time before that really gets into the minds of farmers and farm workers, that unsafe application of pesticides is harmful for them. So is pesticides a necessary evil to secure yield? I'm afraid it is. Do we source organic produce as well? Yes, we do. So we're doing both, but maybe there are different points of opinion here at the table if pesticides should be used in the agriculture industry, yes or no.
I think
we're trying to minimize it.
This is a very important discussion, but we would need a whole side event for that. It's important, but we really need a little bit of time to get the different perspectives and reach a conclusion. I move ahead because we have a very important member on the panel, which is Sonia Quispe Ttito. She has traveled a long distance from Cusco in Peru. It's very important that voices like Sonia's find a place in forums like this. So she's not just here to observe, but also to understand processes, discussions at this level, but also share her very strong personal point of view. She's representing her community here. She's a highly respected leader in her community for her commitment to biodiversity conservation and the traditional knowledge associated with it. She belongs to a local handicrafts collective. She has participated in the formation of a local gastronomy collective, which promotes biodiverse diets, and she trains others in participatory plant breeding. Sonia will speak in Quechua, and you will see her message in English on the screen. But I suggest we listen to Sonia with our hearts, as her message is eternal, and it's very personal, while being absolutely global. So let's take a calm moment and listen to her voice. Please, Sonia.
Nukak sutimi Sonia Quispe Ttito, nukatah hamshani, comunidad choquicancha, destitulares, región Cuscumanda. Nuqayku llank'ayku llank'asqallayku anki llaqtapi kawsayku destimachulayku awlaykuman tupachapas llank'asqallaykuwan nuqayku kawsayku chiraykupin nuqayku llipintaqa mikhuyta llank'ashayku nuqayku llank'ayku mas oranpi frutata chaypi kunaptaq q'ala papata sarata habasta llipintaqa mikhuymi nuqayku llaqtaykupi wiñan Pachamama quwasqanku llipin mikhuymi wiñanchiyta nuqayku llipinta llank'ayku chiywantaqmi mas importante nuqaykupaq mas llank'ay allin kallpaq nuqayku chiyta mikhuspayku mas fuerte mas kallpasapa kanaykupaq nuqayku chiyta llank'ayku hampi qurapis kaq llipillantaqmi chay sectorpi llipin quran nuqayku llipintaqa hampi quraykutan sirwayku nuqa wawaytaqmi 15 chaymanta nuqa chay wawaypi pinsaspan mas llakisqa kay llaqtata willariqnikis ñañaykuna turaykuna hamuni chay watakunan masta pachamamanchis q'uñirin timpunchis cambian totalta nish para chayaspapas mas fuerteta chayan rupaypis nishu fuerteta rupayan chaymantataqmi mikhuyniykutaq q'alata ismuchin kurukuna hamun imimana lasi kurukuna sasachakuymi chaypi nuqaykupaq llakikuy tarikun mikhuyniyku qhawasqaykuma hina mas llakikuy nuqaykupaq unquy imimana lasi mana riqsisqa runapaq kaqllataq mikhuyniykupak hamun qhipa wiñay wawakunaqa iminaraq chakanqapas mas chaymi nuqaq anchi llakikuyni nuqapa qusaykutaqmi rin waq lado huk ladoman llank'aq masta kaq qhipa wiñay wawakunataqmi mikhuyta munan kunan timpu mikhunallataña manaña ñaypaq t'aqa mikhuyta munanñachu chaymi nuqaq llakikuyni manañan kunan timpu mikhuyqa tanto kallpaqa quqñachu chaywanmi nuqayku masta llakisqa kayku nuqayku warmikuna masta pachaterrata kuyrayku chakrata llank'ayku wawayku mas manteninayku mas mikhuychinayku mas kallpasapa kananpaq kaqllataqmi musuq yachaykunatapas huqlaru nakunamanta yachayku masta kaq muhukunamantapas nuqayku puran sirwayta cambiaspayku masta qhachunchachiyta yachayku chaymantataqmi nuqayku llipintaqa muhutan sirwashayku chay larish llaqtapi llipinta q'ala llipin huntasqa llank'asqaykutan sirwashayku warmiqa pis educacionniqmi nuqayku llaqtaykupiqa kayku qharillan mas educacionniq pero puku mana nishu yachayniq qharikunapas pisillan kanku warmiqa mas mana educacionniq kayku chakrawan qunallapin nuqayku familiayku ujullapin awaspa imallan nuqaykuqa chaypi vidata pasayku wawaykuta educayku masta chayta cuidayku mas kana unquyninkunamanta proteginanpaq kunanqa cuidapushayku mas chay salqa mikhunaykuwanmi kunanqa mikhuychipushayku masta chay salqa mikhunaykuta chalakuykutaqmi chay papa llank'asqayku sara llank'asqaykuwan cambiayku chay frutakunata ruwayku chaymi nuqayku larish llaqta chalakuy plaza nisotiyuq kashan yanapawashankutaqmi Puri chi ashashun antes pis yanapawashanku anchata chipi. Allinta yachachawashanku chi ñaypaq mikhikuna puñuyta q'ala nayta yachachiwanku mikhuna wayk'ukuyta q'alata yachashayku. Topachiykutaqmi compañerokuna hawaman yachayniykuta kushkamanta rimarispayku hawamanta hamuqwan kiypi llaqtaykupi kaq kushkamanta rimanaykuspayku kawsayta tupachiyku. Escuela campokunapipas kunan sara llank'ayta allinta yachayku, papa llank'aytapas allinta yachayku. Unquyman sapakuq chiypin kunan chi Pachamama q'uñirininpis sayaq kashan, sarapipis papapipis mas fuerte kallpaq kashan unquyman sayaq papa sarapis. Chaytataqmi nuqayku mashkishayku wawayku sumaq kawsay qhipaman kananpaq. Chaymantataqmi nuqayku qayna wata kunan noviembre killapi Mexicopi kallaraykuta chaypitaqmi sara llank'aq pura rimarirayku saraq rimariyninmanta. Chaypitaqmi llipiyku tuparrayku warmi qhari sara llank'aq pura chaypin rimarirayku saraq rimariyninta allin muhukuna waqayllanaykupaq allin ch'ilanchanaykupaq. Chaymantataqmi chaypi kaq yacharrayku tuparrayku chaypi cambiarirayku muhukunatapas por granos chaykunatan kunan llank'arishayku chaymantataqmi wajarikuriman llipin nakunapi kaqta wajarikuni kunan yanapariwanankupaq chayman pisiachiyta chay Pachamama q'uñirinin chinkachiyta nuqayku pisiachiyta munayku. Qayna wata kunan hina Parispi rimarqanchik chayta nuqapis pisiachiyta chay mami hamurani kunankumpa chay junt'akuchun compañerokuna chay rimariyninchis. Warmi hinan llakikuyku nuqayku chaykunamanta chay wawaykupi pinsaspa. Chaymi chay rimarini nuqayku kashan chaymi yacharchinakuykunan willarnakuy kashan compañerokuna. Llipin nuqaykuqa warmikunaqa haqillarrabaq llipiyku warmikunan llakisqa masta willarnakuyku chaynamanta Pachamamanchis q'uñirininmanta chinkachiyta munayku. Pisiachiyta chaynata nishuta nuqaykupaq warmipaqmi mas llakikuy mas tristeza nuqaykupaq hamuwanku chayraykupin nuqa llakisqa kani chay warmikuna wawaykutaqa siempre warmipuni uywayku maypipis mikhunanpaq llakikuyku wisanmanta masta llakikuyku wawaykumanta. Kallpanmantawan kawsaynimanta mas wawaykupaq preocupaqta kayku. Chaymantataqmi nuqaykuqa chayllapi tukupun nuqaq compañero chayllan nuqaq rimarini ñañaykuna turaykuna karan. Gracias, Aña.
I'm sure you'll agree there can't be a better closing statement, so I wouldn't even attempt to do that. That's the QR code where you can download Sonia's message. It's a personal message to each of us. So you can scan it on your phone and then you get her message. With this, I would need to close. We are 3 minutes over time. But there are two small announcements from Gabor. And before I hand over the floor to him, I want to thank all the panelists, all our guests who have come from really far, Sonia and a companion, thank you very much for taking this effort. And thank you all for being a very wonderful set of participants and for your interest in this topic and commitment. See you next year on many more sessions on agriculture. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. It is an honor to be in the panel. I just want to shortly announce two events. One of them is an informal get-together, a networking event. In case you want to learn more about regenerative agriculture, IFOAM Organics International is based here in Bonn. We have our headquarters just across the street from the US Pavilion, so it's a nice 15-minute walk from here through the park. At 7:30 p.m. this evening, we will have an event, Regeneration International. The title is Speed Up the Cool Down, Meet Regenerators from Around the World. It will be really an informal event with some organic wine served, in case you are interested. A much more formal event that I want to announce is tomorrow. in the same room here, so meeting room 7. It starts at 1:15 p.m. and it's about agroecology, which of course is a key topic for us. And it won't only feature our executive director Marcus Arbenz, but also 5 ministers from France, Hungary, Brazil, Tunisia, and Burkina Faso. So you're very much welcome to attend that event. Thank you very much.